everyone, and welcome to Caffeine podcast and videos. First of all, before I get on to this subject, I have books which I want to upload to Amazon and other platforms. They're fiction, but they're based around the things that I talk about. And one of them, which I'm trying to upload at the moment, The Greatest Fight, is a series. It's a legal series surrounding today's ideologies and belief systems, particularly around inclusivity and all of that kind of stuff. It provides legal arguments, maybe not. It is a fiction, so it's not sort of step-by-step guide or anything like that, but it talks about the implications of these ideologies and how they impact on other people's lives. That story is written, but it's not formatted yet, and I've tried doing that, but I'm having complications with it on Word with regards to sections, section breaks, section breaks, continuous breaks, I don't know, and they're all having issues with the header, so I may have to just scrub the header from it, but I've still got to correct everything that's faulted now, so that could be another week yet. Anyway, I have this book, the Bible, and I have this theory which I'm going to put to you and see what you all think. It says in the King James Version, and all of them really, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I found that last comment really interesting, and there was no more sea. When I think of sea, I think of like freedom. To me, the sea and just being near the sea, it helps me feel a sense of escapism, and I'm sure it does for many people, because many people go on holiday to the sea. So it provides to me, or has done, a sense of freedom. So I was wondering, why is that comment, that additional comment, added? It seems quite strange. Doesn't say anything negative or positive about the sea. It just says there is no more sea, and that could be classed as a positive, because it's saying that the first heaven and the first earth have been passed away or cleansed of the evil and corruption, and there was no more sea, so there's no more corruption there. So I was thinking, what is it about the sea that might bring about a comment like that from God through the Bible? And it made me think of maritime law, and I have qualified in law, and I found it quite disgusting and corrupt, really, and I didn't want to work in the legal system, having qualified. That's why I write about the law, I guess, and write about all these different scenarios which are happening, which are not discussed by the mainstream media, but should be discussed by the mainstream media. So they are very politically incorrect books, and I talk about possible legal arguments, because I sort of explore their cases within the courts, or maybe I do, maybe I don't, possible arguments. Anyway, maritime law. The oldest known maritime laws were created between 900 and 300 BCE. They were then They then had some more created in 1150, which is after 1066. I believe that the Millennial Kingdom existed from like 66 AD through to 1066 AD, and then it started to disappear and vanish after the Normans arrived. I believe that Jesus has been, he's reigned for that Millennial Kingdom, it's gone, and we are now in Satan's season. And I believe that the Normans, and this is my own belief system, I'm not imposing it on anyone else, but I'm questioning whether the Normans brought about possibly through the Holy Roman Empire, I'm not sure, I've got to research that even more, the pre-existing laws which existed, which have been used to enslave humanity for all these millennia. Maritime law is an enslavement law, and there is the strawman theory. Now this is quite a quite an arrogant piece written by Wikipedia, but then when isn't it? There is definitely truth to strawman, and it says here, the strawman theory is a pseudo-legal conspiracy theory originating in redemption and prevalent in anti-government and tax protester movements such as sovereign citizens and free men on the land. The theory holds that an individual has two personas, one of flesh and blood and the other is as a legal personality, the straw man. And this all stems from maritime laws, and that one's legal responsibilities belong to the straw man rather than the physical individual. It gets very arrogant later. Pseudo law advocates claim that it is possible through the use of certain redemption procedures and documents to separate oneself from the straw man, therefore becoming free of the rule of law. Hence, the main use of strawman theory is in escaping and denying liability and legal responsibility. Tax protesters, commercial redemption and get out of debt free scams, I don't believe they're scams, they've worked for me, claim that one's debts and taxes are responsibility of a straw man and not of the real person. They back this claim by misreading, how arrogant, misreading the legal definition of person and misunderstanding the distinction between a juridical person and a natural person. Well, that is such an incredibly arrogant sentence. And you cannot misread, you cannot misunderstand. You understand things and you interpret things from the way you've read them. There is no correct way of reading. You just have to have the opportunity to debate your understanding and interpretation of what you have read. And maybe someone's argument is better than yours and more viable, but that doesn't mean that you've misread it. You've just read it with a different interpretation. I really don't like the arrogance of that. Anyway, so I was thinking about the sea, and then I thought about the maritime laws, and that made me think of the straw man theory. And I wanted to look through different parts of the Bible about that, and of course you have Matthew 5. And Matthew's really interesting because Matthew is a tax collector. which I think is fascinating. Levi's occupation was one that earned distrust and contempt everywhere. The scribes of the Pharisees criticised Jesus on seeing him eat with tax collectors and sinners, whereupon Jesus answered, "I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." That was in Mark. In Matthew, it talks about the same statement that was made in King James Bible at the bottom with regards to the end of the sea, end of the earth and end of heaven. It says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away," which is Revelation 21, "not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished." And it makes me think of the sea. It makes me think of Revelation 21, when he said about the sea, "I will not change the law until the earth and the heaven have passed." I will not change anything about it. So we've still got the maritime laws. We're still enslaved by it. And Matthew is such an interesting one because it talks also about him going to the temple. He went, and this is something else that I want to talk about, but I won't talk about it in this one. But Jesus went to the temple. I've already spoken about it lightly. If you want to have a look at my other video, The Great Questioning, I talk about the money system and what money system, and I believe that they used what are they called? Tally sticks. I believe that Jesus lived, their society ran parallel to this other society. This is what I'm thinking at the moment. I might be completely wrong. But their society ran alongside it. And then slowly Satan was loosed and he brought all these old laws, maritime laws, back, because they had the tally sticks, which seemed to have been of financial freedom. Anyway, I'll get back to this. "For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth have passed away," until Revelation 21, "not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law." It will stay there. This law will stay until the end, when finally the sea has gone with the earth and the heaven. And I just, it might be because of my legal background, but if you think about God, God is all about justice. God is all about the law, isn't he? So is this what he's talking about? I don't know, but I would love to hear off other people what you might think. Just to wrap this up, Luke, "And he lifted his eyes up on his disciples and said, Blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God." And this made me giggle, because if you think about where we are right now, it costs a fortune to take your cases through the courts. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to do that if you're middle class or working class. Even if you've got a certain amount of money, you risk a hell of a lot to go through the courts, because if you lose, you may have to pay their legal fees too. I mean, the justice is not accessible to the middle class, the working class, or even the upper class, really, not really. And I thought about this, and I think this is what is being discussed. So the reason why people are paying tax, I guess, is to help the poor. And of course the poor get help with courts and tribunal fees. They get paid, basically you don't have to pay them. And so if the poor are going to fight through the courts, to set precedents through the courts, then the poor are fighting for justice. Because I think that the middle class are trapped. They cannot afford to risk it. The only people who can afford to risk it are the people with no money in the first place. And all it takes from them is time and concentration. And I wonder, was it the case that Jesus and his disciples and all their followers, they started helping the poor to learn, better skills at concentrating, so that they could then take their cases through the courts and win, then change precedents, because they're not going to change the legislation, certainly not to begin with, but as people start to bring in more cases, then they'll have to adjust the legislation, even repeal it. That's what I think may be the case. So the poor are the frontliners, basically, is what I believe. And if you look at this, help with court fees, anyone who is in difficult financial positions, you can actually get help with your court fees, and that's really good, because they say that the news says that the courts are not accessible to the poor. They are, but maybe it's maybe they just believe that it's not accessible because they're told it's not accessible, because they don't tell you about these help, this kind of help that you can receive. So I believe that as people get poorer and poorer, there's going to be more and more fighting in the courts. I think it's going to get very messy in the courts, and I think they're expecting that, which is why they've brought in ombudsman. And the ombudsman service is to avoid going through the courts. It's a mediating kind of idea, and I never bother with the ombudsman. If you look at their reviews, it's incredible. Right, let's see, 1.3. 1.3. What else have they got? Energy, not too bad, 3.5. Financial services, 2.9. Ridiculous, that's rubbish. All sorts of different ones. So they've brought in the ombudsman recently, and I believe that is so that the poor avoid going to courts. Because if you look into what all these companies say, they say if you've got a problem, if you've got a complaint, you can complain to us. If you're still not happy with the complaint, you can choose to go through the ombudsman. They never state, or you can go through the courts. And the reason they don't want to go through the courts is because it would cost them too much. And they don't want to pay the court fees. They don't want to pay all of that. The poor are, I believe, are going to be the people who are able to fight the cases. I think the poor are going to change the laws. So then that adds the question, is Revelation 21 sort of literal or not? And I don't know. I feel that it is literal, but the mention of the sea makes me think of law. Tell me what you think. Tell me why you think that the sea is written into Revelation 21. What is the point of mentioning it? Do you think about the maritime laws? Do you think about strawman laws when you think of the sea? I do. I think of freedom, and now that has just completely been wiped from my head now. It's one of those where you can't unsee it. But I do feel that we're in a situation where this is going to get very nasty, and things are going to go through the courts, and people are going to become very poor. But the problem with everyone becoming so poor is that they have these laws which allow those people who are poor to access basically free courts, and it's going to collapse their system. That's the only logical solution out of this. They say that they brought the ombudsman because their court systems were collapsing under the pressure. Well, now they've got that, but it's not working. They're not getting good reviews. People will go back to the court system. And they've brought in these new laws and hate speech codes and all of this. And they're saying, a person can identify as whoever they want. Well, when I go to court, I always write, I identify as a living woman. And I always win my cases. I don't know that it's necessarily because of that, but I don't think it does any harm. So when they say that it's a scam, and they tell you to advocate redemption of these sorts of trying to misread the legal definition of person, it's not misreading. A person is classed as an individual or a business. Well, I'm neither. I'm a living woman, and that's how I identify in this world of identification obsession. And if they don't accept your identity, then you'll have to ask them, do you accept anyone who calls themselves Z? And if they say that they do, then you've just won your argument there. Yeah, just say that you're a living woman. That's how you identify. They've shot themselves in the foot there. They really have. But let them go on with their tongue twisting, because they're firing their feet off, and it's to our advantage as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about tally sticks, because it's also in Matthew when Jesus goes to the temple and overthrows the tables of the money changers. And if you think about coins, they didn't have many coins back in the Dark Ages, as they called it, and they didn't have much in the way of coinage. And if you think about what happened with Jesus, he was betrayed for coins. So why would he continue coinage as a way of currency in his society, in his kingdom? Because I don't think he would do. I think he'd get rid of the coins. I believe that the coins came back through storytelling, and if you think of a Pied Piper, he wanted coins, or he stole the children. So I think there's a lot of stuff to go on later on. I won't talk about it now, but I do believe that this may well have been talking about the maritime laws which we are under right now, which have not been removed. So tell me what you think, and I'll get back to this. I'll put another video up about the tally sticks and the monetary system, and where I think the Pied Piper fits in. Okay, thank you. Please like, please subscribe, and please share the video, and definitely comment. And if you have any tips on formatting, please add them in the comments. Thank you. Bye.